In this video, I'm going to show you how to make and design cards out of content blocks in Squarespace. Let's get into it. All right, so to begin, we need to start with a Chrome Web Store extension called Squarespace Collection/Block Identifier. What this extension will do, it'll look at your page and identify each content block with a little ID tag. So I'll show you that inside of Squarespace now. But once you've installed it, this little B will show up in your toolbar up top. And if I press this button, it'll show me a bunch of different little blocks. If we wanted to add some custom code to this specific block, we would choose this piece of code. And when you click it, it'll show this little thing up here, copied to clipboard. So now all we have to do is go to Design, Custom CSS, and then Control V, or right click, paste. Now if we want to customize this block with specific values and things like that, we'll need to first add 2 open and closed curly brackets and then add some space between them. So the first property we're going to change is the box shadow property. So let's start. The first thing we need to do is define the horizontal and vertical offset. And I'll show you how to do that by typing in box shadow colon, and the first 2 values we're going to put is 10 pixels and 10 pixels. So in Squarespace now we have a shadow that is 10 pixels to the right and 10 pixels down. If we add another value to this, it'll change the blur of the shadow, making it softer. So if I add 10 pixels again, it takes our 10 pixels to the right, 10 pixels to the bottom, and blurs it, softens it out. And if we add another value, so let's do 20 just for the sake of not saying the same number 4 times, it'll take our shadow and make it wider. So as you can see, you can customize this any kind of way. You can do whatever you want with this. But what we're going to do is take away the horizontal and vertical shift. We're going to take away this spread as well, and we're left with a nice soft shadow underneath our box. Looks nice. Now there's another value we can add to this box shadow, and it's called color. So with color, we can designate it by rgba and then type in numbers that correspond with those letters. So RGB being red, green, and blue, and then A being what I believe is alpha, which would be transparency. So if we do 0001, it'll just show us the same thing. But if we take this one and make it smaller, so 0.5, we can see that it's now a little more transparent. Let's try 0.2. Now we have a nice soft shadow. Now what we can do with the shadow is, I don't really like these harsh edges right here. So what we're going to do is we're going to add a border radius. And we're only going to use one attribute, one value for this border radius. So let me type it in. Border. Oh, and before I go on, we need to make sure that we're adding semicolons to the end of each property. So once I do this one, I'm going to add it right away. Radius, colon, space, semicolon to make that end, and then we're going to add 20 pixels. So that takes our once rigid box and makes it nice and smooth around the corners. Now, another thing we can do with this box is add some padding inside of it, because if you see this picture here, it comes to the edge a little bit, and we don't really want that. So what we're going to do is go padding, colon, and then semicolon, and then inside of those 2, let's do 10%. The reason I did percent instead of pixels is because if this is going on a site that will be visible on mobile, we'll want it to adjust to the screen size. So the next thing we can do to this card to make it even more interactive is add a hover effect. So what we're going to do is copy all of this, paste it below, and then where this ID ends, where it says CA4, it'll look different for you, but we're going to add a colon and then type the word hover. And then at the bottom, we're going to add the word transition. And then we're going to do 1s for 1 second. And then add a semicolon. And what that will do is when we're hovered over this item, these attributes will be what it takes. And when we are not hovering over the item, this is the attributes that this object will take. So if we make a change, so let's take away the blur so that it doesn't show. Now if I hover over it, it'll show these properties once I'm over it, but these properties if I'm not over it. And that is how you create cards out of any content block in Squarespace.